welcome back to today's Attorney Chat. My name is Ebony Anuforo, and I am an immigration attorney, and I help individuals and families navigate the very often complicated U.S. immigration system. So, through my work, I have had the privilege to guide many couples through the marriage green card process, turning what can be sometimes an overwhelming journey into one with clarity and with confidence. So, the purpose of my discussions that I have here on this platform is to provide you with clear, accurate, and actionable information about U.S. immigration law, whether you're just exploring your options or already in the middle of your case. I'm here to help you avoid mistakes, save time, and move closer to your immigration goals. So in today's discussion, I will be answering your frequently asked questions about the marriage green card process. So whether you're in the US, and you're married to a US citizen or green card holder, or if you're abroad, I'm going to be talking about the steps that are required, and some of the questions that many people have with regards to this process. Okay, so let's dive right in. So I guess my first question is, what is the marriage green card process, right? So the marriage green card allows the spouse of a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident to live and to work in the United States permanently. It's an official document that grants the foreign spouse lawful permanent resident status, meaning that you can eventually become a U.S. citizen if you qualify, if you're eligible. Importantly, it's only granted to couples who can actually demonstrate that their marriage is bona fide. And what does bona fide mean? Bona fide means that you're in a genuine, real marriage for love, and not solely for the purpose of gaining immigration benefits. Okay? Now, so who is eligible, right? I talked a little bit about this, but I want to go in a little bit more detail. Now, to qualify for the marriage green card, you have to meet certain criteria. And the following criteria that's very important and crucial in determining whether or not you're going to be successful in this process is one, you and your spouse must be legally married, right? Legally married in the jurisdiction that recognizes your marriage. Now, this includes marriages that take place overseas, abroad. So a lot of people do ask me, well, I married my spouse in their home country. Does that count as a legal marriage? Yes. If it's a legal marriage in that country, the U.S. government will honor it, and they will accept it and recognize the marriage as a legal marriage. The petitioner, so the U.S. citizen or permanent resident spouse, must be able to prove their status as a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. And how we do that is we show proof of your birth. So if you were born here as a U.S. citizen, we'll provide your birth certificate or passport. If you naturalized, we'll provide your naturalization certificate or passport. If you are a legal permanent resident, right, we'll provide a copy of your current green card. Either way, in order to qualify, you have to be able to prove that the person petitioning for you has legal status. You must also be able to prove that your marriage is bona fide. Now, I talked a little bit about what that means, and I really want to emphasize that this is really, really important, right? You can have all the other requirements that I'm going to talk about, but if you can't prove that the marriage is real and genuine, you will not be able to get a marriage green card. You will not be approved. So USCIS is specifically looking for real marriages, not sham marriages. So you have to provide evidence that the marriage is real and genuine. And you can provide evidence such as joint finances. They love to see you commingle your finances. Family photos together. So pictures with family and friends, pictures showcasing your life together, right? With family, with friends, doing life together. Affidavits also really good if you have people who are willing to give their statement and talk about the relationship. That's also really helpful. If you have joint children, that's always a bonus. That shows a commitment long term. And any other piece of evidence that will show that this marriage is for the long haul and that you guys intend to build a future together. Now, another thing you want to consider is that the foreign spouse must not be barred from adjusting their status or immigrating through consular processing. So, a lot of times people will be barred from adjusting, whether they're in the US or immigrating to come here, if they have past immigration violations or certain criminal offenses in their background. Now, sometimes people don't know about this or they forget, that they committed a crime a very long time ago when they were young, and it comes up during the process, right? It comes up at the consular interview. When this happens, don't, all is not lost. Don't worry, right? Just yet. There might be an option for you. USCIS too does provide waiver options for people in this situation, and you would have to apply to a separate application where you would apply for a waiver based off of whatever you are considered ineligible for. And when that's approved, you'll be able to immigrate to the United States. Okay. Now, you heard me talk about two terms, adjustment of status and consular processing. What are they and what are the difference? Well, adjustment of status is a process for spouses who are already in the United States, right? So either they're here legally on a different status and now they're changing their status because they're applying for the marriage green card, or in some cases they came in legally on, let's say, a visa and they overstayed, but now they're getting married and their spouse is a US citizen, so they can adjust their status in the country. What it simply means is that you are able to apply for the green card process in the United States without having to leave and go back to your home country. And there's only a select few people that can do this, particularly people that are currently in status and there's a visa available, and or people who are the spouse to a US citizen who had a legal entry. Okay, so in order to do this, you would have to have a I-130 petition filed on your behalf by your petitioning spouse. And you, in most cases, will be able to apply for the I-485 concurrently, which means at the same time as the I-130 petition is filed. Okay, during this process, you are also able to apply for a work permit or travel document, which is called the advanced parole. Because the marriage green card process takes a long time, the US government understands that foreign national spouses might need to work and support themselves or support the relationship. So they provide work permit options for you so that you can work while you wait for your green card to be reviewed and approved. Now, consular processing is different. So this is for spouses who are outside of the US. So the US citizen or green card holder will file the I-130 on behalf of the foreign national spouse. And once it's approved, that foreign spouse will now apply for the immigrant visa through the US Embassy or the consulate. They'll go through the State Department. So it's a different process. If you're in the country, you do everything through USCIS. If you're outside of the country, the first step you apply through USCIS, and then your next step goes to the State Department. And once you have your interview abroad, you will now be able to come in and enter through consular processing in the US. Okay, so I get a lot of questions about documents that are required for the marriage green card. I'll talk a little bit about it, what you need to prove that you're eligible. So you're going to want to provide copies of your marriage license. You want to provide the bona fides that we talked about. So you want to provide photos, joint lease agreement, financial documents showing commingling of finances, and anything else that will prove that your marriage is real and bona fide. You want to provide proof and evidence of your spouse's status. And also, you want to prove financial support. So, part of the marriage green card process is that the foreign national spouse must be supported by their U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse. So that person who's the petitioner has to complete a form called the affidavit of support, basically showing that you can financially take care of your foreign national spouse while they're here in the United States. Now, you're going to have to provide evidence that you meet that threshold, and that threshold will depend on your household size. That threshold will depend on yeah, your household size. So if you have a household of two people, you and your spouse, then you have to show that you make a certain amount of money on the poverty level. There's a whole chart, federal poverty level chart that you can find online that tells you and directs you on how much you need to make based on your household size. In some cases, people are not able to meet that threshold, and that doesn't mean that you can't sponsor your spouse, right? You just in that situation might need to get a co-sponsor, a joint sponsor, someone who's willing to sign this contract and saying that they will be responsible also for financially for your foreign national spouse when they're in the country. So if you don't make the certain amount of money, or you don't make enough, you don't feel like you make enough, you can have a joint sponsor assist you and also complete the form for the application. Okay. You also need to do a medical exam report. You'll need to do that. There's a form for the I-693 form. You'll have to get that done. There are approved civil surgeons that USCIS list on their websites that you have to go through. You can't just go to your regular doctor. You have to go to a physician that is authorized by USCIS. You have to also provide your documentation as well, your birth certificate, your passport, um, proof of where you lived for the past several years, 5 years or more, and any information that USCIS requires for you, the foreign national spouse, you'll want to provide that evidence when you're applying. And the reason why you want to do this, you want to make sure you supply everything that's required is because a lot of times when people apply for this process, they don't submit all the evidence that's required, and they end up getting something called an RFE. An RFE stands for Request for Evidence. And what that does is it delays your case. So USCIS will now stop or put a stop on your case and request certain documents that they feel that they need to move forward in their review. So this increases your wait time. This can delay your case. And if you don't respond in time, can ultimately lead to a denial. So you want to try to avoid an RFE as much as you can. In some cases, you can't. But if you provide a lot of strong evidence at the onset, the likelihood of you receiving an RFE decreases. Okay, so the next question that I get a lot is how long does the marriage green card process take? So processing times are going to vary widely based on factors like where you live, where you filed, right? Whether the petitioner's in the United States, whether the petitioner's outside of the US, whether the petitioner filed based on being a foreign national spouse of a US citizen versus a legal permanent resident. It's really going to depend. And I know that people hate to hear that answer because lawyers, we always give the it depends answer, but honestly, it really does, right? It's going to depend on different factors. And it's also going to depend on whether or not you received an RFE. An RFE can delay the processing time in the case. But typically, on average, the marriage green card process can take anywhere from 10 to 14 months for adjustment of status and 12 to 18 months for consular processing. Now, I've seen cases personally in my firm where we were approved in 3 months for an adjustment of status or 6 months for adjustment of status. And we've had cases that have gone even longer than that. So it really just depends on when you file, whether or not there was RFE, where the foreign national spouse is located, and so forth. Okay, so it depends. Now, another question is, will the foreign spouse need to attend an interview? And the answer is yes. The interview is a very crucial step in the process. The reason why USCIS interviews marriage green card applicants is because one, they want to make sure you are who you say you are. Two, they want to make sure that the marriage is real, right? So if you're in the United States and you're applying through adjustment of status, the interview will take place at a local USCIS office here in the States. And at that point, they will interview the couple. So they will bring in the couple into the office and they will ask you questions about your relationship. They can ask you questions, very, very personal questions about your relationship. They can ask you questions about past relationships. So if you have had a previous immigration petition filed on your behalf, they can ask you questions about that as well. And they're going to ask personal questions about the applicant, your background, and things like that. For consular processing, the interview will happen at a U.S. embassy or consulate abroad. Typically, this is just the foreign national spouse that will be going for the interview. So you don't have to worry about going over there and interviewing with them. So ultimately, the interview process is a very crucial part of this process. Now, for the past few years, USCIS have been waiving interviews for adjustment of status applicants, many interviews. We've had many clients have their interviews waived in the last few years and just get approved without an interview, which is great, right? It takes the edge off. A lot of times clients are very nervous about sitting before an immigration officer and having to answer questions. Even though their marriage is real and genuine, right? It's still nerve-wracking because this is someone who's going to be making a very important decision on your life, right? On your livelihood. So it's very normal for people to be nervous about the interview process. But we have seen a lot of people have their interviews waived. Now, just because you have to have an interview is not a bad sign. I think the key thing is when you're being called for an interview is to make sure that you prepare. Preparation is key. Even when you feel like you know each other, you've been together for a long time, you know everything about each other, it's still important for you to prepare for the interview because you just want to make sure that you're answering the questions honestly, you're answering them precisely, you're consistent in your answers, and you're able to review your application because they are going to be reviewing your application with you. So preparing for the interview is important whether you've been married for 1 year or married for 10 years. Another question I get a lot is, can I work while I'm waiting for my marriage green card? And I kind of answered this already. If you are in the United States and you filed for an adjustment of status and you apply for a work permit, which is on the form I-765, and you applied with your adjustment of status application, typically we see approvals for the work permit anywhere from 3, 6, maybe sometimes 9 months on the latest being processed. Once you receive that work authorization, then yes, you are able to apply for, you are able to work while you wait for your green card. A lot of times we've seen people get approved for the work permit and shortly after get the green card. That happens a lot as well. But to answer your question, yes, while you're waiting for your marriage green card, you can work if you've been approved for a work permit. Another question that I get is, what happens if our marriage ends during the green card process? Well, if the marriage ends before you get the green card, before the green card is approved, your application will likely be denied, you know? And this is because the whole purpose of getting the green card is based on the marriage. So if there's no marriage, then ultimately there's going to be no green card. Now, however, if you've already received your green card and you received what is known as a conditional green card, which is the 2 year green card, it's not the permanent 10 year green card, then you can still apply to remove the conditions off of that 2 year temporary green card by filing the form I-751 and requesting a waiver based on the fact that you were in a genuine marriage. And however, your marriage ended based on divorce, and you would have to provide proof of that divorce. So if you already received a green card, but it's conditional, and your marriage terminated, all is not lost. You don't automatically lose the green card. You still have to apply to remove the conditions, apply for a waiver, and let USCIS know that the marriage terminated based on divorce and provide the evidence required to show that marriage is no longer. Okay. But if you never received the green card and the marriage ended, unfortunately, you're likely to be denied. Okay. Another question that comes up is, what if the foreign spouse has unlawful presence in a criminal record? Now, I kind of talked about that earlier, right? This happens a lot. A lot of times, spouses will come and they will overstay their visa, or they enter the U.S. illegally by crossing a border, or they have a criminal record. They committed several crimes or 1 or 2 crimes, right? Either way, in these situations, it is very important for you to work with an attorney because these situations can be very complex and it's An attorney will be able to guide you, review and analyze the situation, evaluate your case, and direct you on what's the best path. Depending on whether you entered illegally or whether you committed a crime, you're going to be required to have a different waiver. Sometimes people have both, right? Some people cross the border without legal entry and have a criminal record, right? So they have to do two waivers. So in this situation, you will definitely need to work with an attorney because it's not something that you want to go on your own. Now, if you get a waiver and your waiver is approved, then you'll be able to go consular process, go back to your home country, and then go through the interview at the embassy and enter into the US with the immigrant visa and get your green card. Can I travel while my green card application is pending? Similar to the question about working while your green card is pending. If you are applying for adjustment of status and you're adjusting and you're staying in the US to receive your green card, you can apply for your work permit and another permit called advanced parole. Advanced parole basically gives you permission to leave the US and re-enter after a short stay outside of the country, right? If you leave the country while your green card is pending and you do not have advanced parole, you have been deemed and considered to have abandoned your green card application. That's one thing. The other thing is you left without permission to come back into the US. So it's likely that they will not let you to come back into the US, especially if you are without status. So if you're someone who is thinking about leaving the country, maybe there's an emergency, you have to go back into your country, a family emergency, it is very important that you apply for advanced parole, which gives you permission to come back. And that's on the form I-131. And you will use that as a legal entry to come back into the US after a very short stay out of the country. Now, do I advise people to use their advanced parole while they're waiting for their green card? If you need to, right? Most of the times I'll tell people if you can avoid it, stay. Just wait till you get the green card. But there are some situations where people have to go back home, see family, maybe aging parents, there's family emergency, death in the family, God forbid. But things do come up and people have to go back to their country. And with advanced parole, this gives you the opportunity to go and to come. Okay. So I think that's where I'm going to stop right now. Um, I love to answer these frequently asked questions because a lot of times people are going through the process and they're just really worried. They don't know if, they qualify. They don't know if they have enough evidence. They're worried about past, immigration issues or criminal issues, and they kind of just stay in limbo and people don't take action. If you're one of those people, I get it, I understand, but I encourage you to take action. And the action that I encourage you to do is talk to an attorney, having a consultation to talk about your case. There are some attorneys who charge a fee for a consultation like we do. I do charge a fee for a consultation. But during that consultation, I'm going to review and analyze your case, provide you with legal strategies that will best help you and navigate the best action steps, the best way that you can move forward. Sometimes during consultations, we discover that there are bigger issues than the person even realized in their case. And had they moved forward with the process without speaking to an attorney, they could have gotten themselves in a bigger issue. So it's very, very important that you talk with a lawyer before you make any step in any immigration process because immigration is very complex. Policies are always changing. And sometimes you might have certain facts in your case that require a little bit more legal analysis, a little bit more of a deeper analysis and evaluation from someone who's an expert and has been doing this for a very long time. So I hope that I answered many of your questions about the marriage green card process. I know that immigration can be very stressful, but remember that if you have the right guidance, you can navigate this very successfully. Okay. If you still have questions or you need help with your particular case, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. You can contact me through direct message. You can give me a call. you can send us a WhatsApp message or even a text. And if you enjoyed this video on this chat, I ask that you please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update when I release videos like this. And if you like personalized assistance, you can contact my office again, like I said, to set up a consultation. Our number is 201-565-0099. And you can visit our website at www.anuforolaw.com. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this discussion, and I will see you next time. Take care.